Spox are a leading UK and now global company providing custom brand kits, whether that is clothing or socks. They are with you every single step of the way by bringing your idea to light. They exclusively work with fitness communities, business communities in the UK and worldwide. To check out everything that they do, head over to www.spox.uk.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been known in the coaching world, whether it be Parisi or Training for Warriors, which I was involved with, which is for adult training, is that always about culture and community. And so reaching into to people's psyches about, like, what does it really mean to be a part of something greater than yourself?
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Master Your Life Beyond The Boardroom. I am your podcast host, Luke Beestall, and me and Eric are going to do a take two on this. I have to share this, guys, because this is the real talk behind what can happen with technology. We recorded an episode. It was such a great conversation. But unfortunately, it only lasted about 13 minutes and then technology cut us off. But here we are again. This is going to be even better, I believe, because we were just chatting a bit beforehand and life's changed for Eric in very positive ways. He's actually sat in his car. He's on travel at the moment. He's going into some sports performance coaching. And this is what I love about the entrepreneur journey. It's just, you just take the risks, you jump into things, but you still make that time and commitment to things that, you know, matter to you. So look, just to give you a bit of an intro of Eric, like I say, he is a sports performance coach. He works with elite athletes, so that could be kids, all the way up to the NFL leagues. He works in all sports. He's been doing it for over 33 years. So his experience in that is, well, as you can imagine, admirable, but second to none. He is the founder of Tsunami Coaching, and he is just about to release and become an author of his first book, The Tsunami Effect. So we're going to delve into this. We're going to really understand the pivot in his life, how he's decided to get to this place, but ultimately what's sort of been going on, what you can't always see behind the scenes. So, look, I'm going to be quiet now. Eric is from United States. Whereabouts in the United States, Eric? I'm sorry.
Just outside of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, East Coast.
Yes, because East Coast, yeah. Because
Yes.
obviously, where are you at the moment?
Well, now up in Jersey.
Up in Jersey. Okay.
Yeah, so not far, not terribly far from where I am. Yeah.
No, brilliant stuff. Well, look, yeah, feel free. I mean, obviously, I know I waffled on a little bit there, but feel free to share with our audience. Yeah, just a little bit. If there's any extension that you want to put onto that, what we just shared.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the industry an awful long time. I started off, honestly, I went to college not for this. I went to college for military history and international relations. Wanted to be a United States Marine Corps officer, and things got derailed about 1989, 1990, which I'm actually blessed that I always say I'm serving my country a little differently, where I'm working with kids and helping kids. I pivoted, started coaching high school track, got involved in the Nautilus world, was in the first Nautilus training programs where it was super slow to failure, Luke. So literally what you would do is you'd stand there and count from 1 to 10 with clients for 8 exercises. And that's really what you would do. And I always made this joke. I said, you could teach a baboon to do that and you wouldn't have to pay it. You just give it like food and then it would be fine. But in our industry, we had to evolve. And right around 1996, I evolved and started doing sports performance and training athletes. And it was at a time when, honestly, I don't think anywhere in the world you found people training athletes. Maybe in the Soviet bloc is when they would do things back then. And I can say that the Soviet bloc at that time, they had just collapsed, obviously. But previously, they were training athletes that kind of scientifically. They were doing a little extracurricular stuff they shouldn't have been doing, but they were training athletes. And then fast forward, I've been involved in the Parisi Speed School, which was founded by Bill Parisi. And that's really targeted towards youth athletes, but it also goes all the way up to professional athletes, from 7 to pro athletes. So we work on speed development, power development, strength development, but nutrition's a part of it. But I will tell you, I think in all honesty, we're developing life skills for the kids more than anything else. Character development, leadership skills, discipline, self-discipline. That's really what my focus has always been. And then I coach a lot of coaches, Luke. So for instance, like I leave Thursday to go down towards Dalton, Georgia, to work with a gymnastics group that has a Parisi Speed School. So I'm certifying all their coaches in our system and our techniques. And then the genesis of some changes I wanted to make in my 50s write a book and to make some drastic changes. So, and where I wanted to go with this outside of sports performance, more talking to sales professionals and corporate executives.
So becoming a dad back in 2023 has definitely been challenging at times. Being on this entrepreneur journey, having multiple businesses, it can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. One way to kick off your personal development journey is nestled in the heart of Montenegro. Syro Boca Place offers more than just a lifestyle experience. It is the ultimate active lifestyle hotel. Whether you're looking to rejuvenate in this state-of-the-art recovery lab, take a dip in the 25-meter half Olympic pool with a retractable roof, or explore the stunning trails of Boca Bay, there is something for everyone. And if you're like me, who wants to stay active and experience what is on offer, so if you're looking to elevate your travel experience and feel better than when you arrived, to get in on the experience, head over to www.syrohotels.com.
This is good. I love that summary, by the way. And obviously, you're working with some high performers, and obviously you didn't paint this path. You didn't think when you was coming through college and university, you ended up here. Do you know in that moment, like, what was? I mean, I'm just curious now. We'll go into this stuff in a second. What was you sort of thinking that, like, when you started falling into this path of like sports coaching, and did you feel an imposter in any way? Did it seem a bit out of you? Like, yeah, how did you feel with all of that?
Well,
It's a
that's
big
a really
change.
good question. That imposter syndrome that'll carry on, and you'll probably resonate with this as well. I think that we carry that for a long time, especially in the coaching world, because we're entrusted with so much, especially. I would say it's the greatest commodity in the world are the children of our society. You're entrusted with developing and growing and helping them be better than they were when before they walked in the door. So a little bit of that
Yep.
imposter syndrome happens. For me, it was more one of these things where literally, Luke, it kind of fell on my lap. And so I went from personal training, very wealthy people. There's an area of Pennsylvania. It's called the Main Line. And the Main Line is literally, it's in the dictionary, the Oxford Dictionary, the Main Line, because there's a whole economic strata that's very beyond most people. For instance, I'll give you an example. Most homes in that area are between $4 to $6 million. That's the
Wow.
average. That's the average. And so it's very wealthy. So I was training those people. Well, I had a good friend of mine who was in the field with me who said, "Hey, Eric, listen, you're not destined for this. You played sports in college. I can tell you want to train athletes." And honestly, back then in the mid 90s, nobody really did that. You were told, hey, if you're fast, you're fast. If you're strong, you can get stronger, but speed's a whole different creature. And there really wasn't any codified speed training whatsoever. Now, I can't speak for what it was like in the UK, but definitely in the United States, there was that thought process. Well, I took a chance and quit my job to work with a tennis coach. And Luke, within a week, I was down in Florida training professional tennis players with
Wow.
no clue what I was doing. No idea. All I knew was from my own athletic experience, the footwork that you had to use. So literally what was doing traditionally, throw a ladder down and just kind of run through drills, not really understanding why I was doing it. But as I progressed with it, I started getting more and more confident. The key for me as a coach, was finding the right mentors and the right coaches that could help guide me towards this endeavor. I started my own company called Progressive Speed Training. There's a whole story behind that, the lead up to it. And then found mentors in Bill Parisi and a guy named Martin Rooney out of the Parisi Speed School in about 2004. In 2005, I opened my first Parisi Speed School. And honestly, there was nobody in our area that was doing that. Now, if you looked around, Luke, there's like 30 different kind of speed schools around. But when we did it,
Yeah.
it started off, and we were the pioneer in especially NFL combine training development. So I was really blessed that fairly quickly in my career, I was put into, and mind you, I was doing NFL combine training way before I was with Parisi because I hooked in with a football agent as well. Again, I had to watch old videotapes from the NFL to learn how to do the testing. Like that's how you
Ah,
did
that's
it. Like they gave you,
crazy.
yeah, it's crazy stuff. So I think your authority is built on experience. Your authority is built on experience. Now, that's not to say that there was any given moment where, like, I think there's imposter syndrome all the time. I think we have a tendency to lessen our skill set when the reality is, when you reach a certain point, Luke, and you've been doing this for a long time, you are an authority figure, and people are overwhelmed by the amount of knowledge that you have. But more importantly, I think that what overcomes the imposter syndrome is, do you genuinely care about the people you're working with? I have a good friend who always would say, you cannot light a fire in somebody else if you're not on fire yourself. Not literally,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I know what you mean.
so I always felt that if you took knowledge and then combined it with passion, that not just passion, you got to have the knowledge and the education behind it. But if you did that, it will stamp out whatever imposter syndrome you've had. However, I'll be 58 in December, and it's taken me this long to realize it.
Mm. To realize what exactly, just for the audience, if they're checking in here.
That I'm really good at what I do, and that there's a level of knowledge and respect that's coming from other people. I had somebody yesterday, just to give you an example. I have a young soccer player I'm working with, as you guys would say, football, because you guys.
Yeah, yeah.
So his mom said, would you mind if I videoed some of the training session, because they live far away, they live over an hour away from me. And I said, sure, no problem, absolutely. She said, by the end, she goes, I filmed the whole thing. And then she goes, I'm an imposter, I'm a fraud, I don't know how to train people, I cannot believe what I just saw here. And for me, it was just I said, no, I said, Ashley, you should be able to pick this stuff right up. This is stuff that if you incorporate this into your son's training outside of me, you're going to be that much better of a parent, that much better of a coach, and he's going to look at you differently now. But you're certainly not an imposter. You don't know what you don't know. And I'll tell you, I'm learning as we dive into fascia training now more than ever in Parisi, as Bill Parisi is really the authority now on fascia training for athletes. Luke, I don't know that stuff. That blows right over my head. So I have to study that to make myself a better coach. It's very humbling when you see there's always somebody who knows more than you. Always. So I think if you commit yourself to learning, if you commit yourself to the education piece, and you be willing and open, especially in our field, then you'll diminish the imposter syndrome. I do believe that.
Yeah, well, obviously you're taking action, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
you're committed to. I think what I really admire, though, Eric, just from what you shared there, is the fact that you've been open and honest and sort of said that this opportunity fell on your lap, so it
Mhm.
came to you, and you didn't sort of delay. You didn't oh, let me think about it. You just kind of threw yourself in and then figured it out. You found that, oh wow, I'm with these tennis players, I'm with these elite pros, and I have they don't know anything different. They're just looking at you as their pro coach. I just want to know, though, because there must have been so much sort of doubt, and
Sure.
fear, and, like, say, imposter syndrome in those moments. I just love to know, from a mental state, how
Yeah.
did you keep on going? How did you
Well, I'll
just
tell you,
keep going and going and going?
and I will tell you this, that when you look at it, when you're working with elite level athletes, there's this misconception that they're the Avengers. There's this misconception that they're superheroes. They're not. They are physically gifted. They are mentally gifted. But also, you're going to look at this and go, wait a minute. They have the same fears, the same anxiety, the same frustrations, and the same depression that we get. And actually, it's amplified because the spotlight's all over them. They will look to you to calm their sense of imposter syndrome as well. So as a coach, our job is also to do that. That's how I think you balance, especially as a high performer, actually in any field. I don't care what field it is. Your job is going to be to mentor and help others to achieve their greatness. That, I do believe, starts to alleviate the imposter syndrome. The more you look at it and go, okay, wait a second, they're just like us. They literally have the same issues, actually, sometimes even worse. And sometimes I've sat back and gone, whew, I'm glad I'm not them. Despite all the fame and the money and everything like that they're looking at, there's intense pressure on them to perform all the time, constantly. And by the way, especially athletes, there's always in their mind somebody younger, faster, and stronger that's waiting to take their place. So they're looking at it like that from that perspective. So I think that was the moment for me. Was I was training a very talented tennis player, and she was getting very frustrated with her footwork. And she had mentioned to me that there were two young athletes coming up in South Florida that she couldn't physically beat. They were just too strong, too fast. And I was incredulous because I thought to myself, this is a top 10 tennis player in the world. What are you talking about? There's no way. Well, I didn't know it was the Williams sisters. I didn't realize it was them. And at the moment they turned pro, based on her mental state, she wouldn't have been able to beat them. They were just that much faster. The world had changed so dramatically in terms of the style of skill that you had to have, the skill set. And it was just a very interesting viewpoint from my perspective of what, the insecurities an athlete would have even at the highest levels. So that calmed me a lot, honestly. It calmed me a lot about what my mission and what my role is. My role was to help them honestly get mentally more fit, and believe in themselves more. And we have a crisis in this world of confidence, and it's gotten worse. So you have a crisis of confidence. You have the highest suicide rates among young people in the world right now than
Yeah.
ever before. So how do we as coaches combat that? I think we have to first address our own issues and get out of that mindset that we're lesser than we really are. And this, there's a coaches. It's weird. There's this. It's almost like a humble experience where we go, "Oh, I really didn't contribute." When people they're like, "Thank you for everything you've done." Well, I really didn't do anything. I was there. I facilitated. But the reality is, you did a lot. I don't care if you're training the kid or if you're training the adult. If you have people that are giving you testimony, take it and just realize how important you really are in the growth and development of I say everybody's an athlete, of athletes.
I think I love everything you've just again shared there. Though there was a lot of good stuff, especially about sharing that athletes are just like anyone else, and in fact it is amplified in a way. Obviously they could be soon forgotten.
Sure.
There could be somebody snapping at the heels and they're gone instantly. So
Hmm.
whatever you, not saying see as envious or jealousy, whatever, it's like that they go through it, but they still have the depression, the confidence, the self-doubt. I think that was a nice piece to talk on, and that we are in a confidence crisis. Obviously suicide rates are higher than ever before, and I think just how your role has shifted as well through the coaching, how there's more stuff out there, probably you're wearing more hats, but you've developed through your time as being a coach. What would you say from being a professional coach that you've learned the most about yourself through all of this change?
Well, I will tell you this. I think I've learned for myself that I can pretty much take on any chaos that's surrounding me, internally and externally. So any of my own chaos, and I say it's chaos because it clouds your judgment. It makes you make bad decisions. I've made terrible decisions with business partners, with business. I'm sure you can kind of relate back to that, especially in the fitness industry. It's a tough one. I
Oh
would say
yeah.
it's the land of misfit toys, where you've got very talented people that can't focus. And I've been accused. Listen, ADHD, with what we do. Very talented people that cannot focus. So what I've learned the most about myself is that I can weather pretty much any storm that comes towards me, any tsunami, if you'd like to use that metaphor right there. But
Yes.
also I'm a much better parent as a result of where I am. A 15-year-old son, just navigating the teenage years now, and as an older dad who's going to be 58 with a 15-year-old, um, I can navigate that better. I'm 100% a better partner to my longstanding girlfriend Karen that I ever was before. Certainly a better family member to my siblings and my relatives, and my mom who's going to be 86 years old, and navigate that better. So I think that, but also I think I've become more empathetic. I've learned that I've become much more empathetic, not only to the athletes I coach, but to myself, because we're our own harshest critic and we have a tendency not to be empathetic to our own situations. And that's primarily, I would say that that's what I've learned about myself, is that I've become more about helping others, but helping myself. And listen, I can't help other people if I can't help myself. So that's a key.
Bang on. Yeah, yeah, I like that. That's very powerful there. Yeah, how can I look after others if I can't even look after myself?
That's for sure.
I mean, that's a big one, and especially there'll be a lot of people probably even listening in here, wherever they are in the world, thinking, "Ooh, that's like a mic drop. That's like a, a hit," because it is. We could always do our best to look after everybody else, but we're not actually looking after ourselves. But I think that empathy part as well is a skill, and it's a unique skill, I think, in coaches, because the world that we live in today is very sort of cutthroat. It's fast paced. That connection can be lost. That actual space to hold that emotion is really challenging. So if you was to sort of go back to like your early days in coaching and life as a father, because you've spoken about your roles of being a bit of an older dad, obviously your mum's getting older, you talk about your long-standing partner, so you've been able to bring that into your personal life as well as your professional life. What was Eric like earlier days in his coaching? What do you think people would say about Eric?
Well, I would say I was a workaholic. That's for sure. I'd be working seven
Okay.
days a week. I definitely was doing that. I think that was also to blunt any insecurities I had to keep busy. I wanted to constantly keep busy. I think I would have been smarter about the way that I looked at life in terms of especially finances. I was reckless with money. I made a lot of money as a young coach, and promptly would be going to Florida every single month and spending a lot of money. And that's just, I wasn't properly investing at the time. I also, if you asked me what my life vision was, my goals, I would tell you I want to train professional athletes. That's all I wanted to do. And I was very blessed I got to do it. It wasn't fulfilling at that point back then. If you ask me what my life mission is now, it's to establish a company that's going to be able to go out and serve the world to help more people. I mean, that's what I want to do. And when people say it's not generic help, I want to instill levels of confidence so that people can do exactly what you and I do: grow our businesses, make an impact, have a great family, have the safety and security that I didn't have as a youngster, coming from a divorced family. Alcoholic father passes away at 18 when I was 18 years old. So I think I was angry. I was angry, and I was in a strange way, pretty arrogant about my knowledge base, my skill set. I was a pretty fast sprinter. So I just thought that I was above everybody else at that time. And then when I would learn something, I wanted to keep it to myself. So I didn't want others to know about it. I didn't want others to know that skill set. And as I got more mature, my attitude, especially in fitness, changed. But I would tell you I was just harboring tremendous amounts of insecurity as I was that scared 8-year-old kid, even in my 20s, probably into my 30s, you know. So my younger self was not a nice guy. I wasn't. Now, I wasn't overtly nasty to people, but I was introverted, which is, you probably would look at me now and say, well, how's that possible? Um, but I've had people say that. They're going to say, I had one person a long time ago. She was talking to me. This is kind of an aside. I went to camp with her, and summer camp with her. And years later, we reconnected. This is when I was in my early 30s. And she said, did you have any concept that I liked you? That's what she said to me. And I was like, no. And she goes, well, I was terrified to approach you because you're edgy and not very nice. And I was like, wow. She remembers when we were 16 years old. We're now 36 or 37 years old. And that's the first
Mad.
thing that she says to me. And I thought, wow, is that what I was like? Because I didn't see it. And it's a far cry from where I were. My current self would tell my younger self to be less angry, to process things better, to get more therapy so that I could be better adjusted, to believe in myself, which I didn't back then. So the way I took it, I was angry all the time. Not the same person for sure, but that's what I would do. I would go back and tell my younger self those things.
That's by the way, what you shared there. I mean, obviously losing your father. I know we'd spoken about this in our previous episode.
Yeah.
It's a hard one, right? Obviously being on alcohol and obviously your parents splitting and all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff as a young kid. Like, of course you're going to carry anger.
Sure.
Obviously it seems as though you was that big man, strong man that could take it, and the weight got heavier. And I guess like what you said, the workaholic. And I'm just talking from my own experience. Yeah, you do use it as a tool to numb your actual real feelings of
Yep.
how you're feeling in that moment. But look, I mean, obviously you've gone through a massive transformation as a man. I think it's very important that you share that vulnerability now. You've got that courage to be open and admit as well, and look back on your life. I mean, like I say, we all make mistakes and stuff like that. We all make things that we could change. It's crazy that the person that liked you thought that and was scared to approach you. But when was? I mean, I'd just love to know though, like, when was that moment in your life that you had like said to yourself, or something had to change from like, so Eric started to change?
Well, I think there was always the glint of that change within me. I don't think I'd be able to be as a successful coach in the Parisi system, and I can give you an example. If I'm doing on-site certifications, there's often times where groups will say we specifically want Eric to come down because I'm a big culture and community guy. But if you're asking me, even all the way up until, and this is going to sound crazy to your audience, February of, January of 2025. So very recently, when
Yeah.
Karen and I split up, and she pointed out all the things that were boiling under the surface for me. Now, externally, I was able to cover that up for years, Luke. So from the time I was at 8 years old all the way up until my late 50s, I had this veneer of being happy. This veneer of, hey, I got everything under control. This veneer of, you know, I'm comfortable with what I do. Now, I'm not going to say, because I don't want to paint it as that I don't have a passion or love what I do, coaching wise. When I'm in the moment of coaching, it's an unstoppable feeling. It's one of the greatest feelings in the world to help other people, and you do get that acknowledgement. Or doing fundraisers to raise money for kids, and I've done that many times. Um, but if you ask me, when finally Karen said, "Hey, we're done because of this," and this list, Luke, and I can tell you once, is January of this past year, middle of January, and this laundry list of where I was career wise, um, my relationship to her, to my son, to my ex-wife, to my mom, to my living situation, to my career path. And it took me another month till about February, mid-February, when I made these decisions where I said, okay, I'm going to stop performance coaching by the time I'm 58 years old. So that's December. And I'm going to write a book. And I formulated this concept for the Tsunami Effect coaching that night, February 15th. And the book's going to be released in October. It was finished by June, but then you have this, the editing process and everything. So if you're asking me that, that's the moment where my entire life changed. That was it. And uh, it, yeah, you asked. So that's how long it's taken.
That's insane, but life changing and a pivotal moment. I mean, I know again we've spoken about this, and I think for Karen to actually be able to give you that list, like I
Mhm.
say, it's probably the blessing that you needed in that moment, right? I mean, it was something that needed to be put
Well,
cards on the table, sort of situation.
Well, to say to the audience, listen, we broke up, and it's very rare, I think, that people are able to work things out, especially at a later stage in life. Although you do have the maturity to do that. We're back together again, stronger than ever, as a result of the fact that she did that. Now, I want to keep in mind too, the changes I made were for me. I had to make those changes. So I think that she and I benefited from that. But the reality is, if we hadn't gotten back together, Luke, like, I still would be on the path I'm on, because it kind of
That's good.
woke me up. Yeah, it woke me up. And I think that people like the audience, like, do the things for you. Make sure that you're doing what you're doing for yourself, or you're just going to fall back into the same patterns of, like, again, going back to as a younger coach, well, actually, younger coach all the way into my 30s, 40s, and early 50s. I was doing everything for everybody else. I
Right.
would do things for everybody else. I did nothing for myself. And yet, even when that was happening, I was being very selfish, because I'm being very selfish by not taking care of me. And so, yeah, I would tell you, that's why the book's dedicated to Karen, as being that citadel for me in the face of a tsunami. I mean, that's just what it is. And had she not done it, I don't know. I honestly, Luke, I don't know where I'd be right now with this.
Yeah, I mean, again, I like that part where you've spoken and clearly said, they said it a couple of times, that the changes were for me. It wasn't obviously for Karen, it was for you, but then it has benefited
Sure.
your relationship anyway. And actually, I've just, when I was listening to you there, I mean, I've never sort of heard this phrase, but I like it, and I thought I might just repeat it back, where it is selfish to not look after yourself.
It's terribly
I,
selfish not to. Yep.
but I think it's like when people say but people flip it and say it's selfish to put yourself first. Your family has to come first. And now, I'm not saying that, family isn't a big part, but
Mhm.
you are part of that family, and if you're not looking after yourself, then that family breaks down. That's the way I see it.
Well, I'm 100% in agreement with you, and I think it is negligent to not take care of yourself. And that's why you see, and this is the scary thing, and you and I, we see it because of the industry we're in and the people that come to our industry. We get a lot of high performing people. Well, we talk about people that fall apart and break down. Their health collapses, their relationships collapse, their careers collapse because they don't take care of themselves. And it's exactly what you said. There is a misconception, and I don't know where it happened, where people will say, "Oh, the kids come first." And we live in a society where parents are trucking their kids all over the place. They're taking them to this sporting event, that sporting event. Because I hear it all the time, where I go, "Well, what do you and your wife do?" "Oh, we don't do anything. We just take our kids to tournaments." And I'm like, in my head, I'm not saying this to them, obviously. My head going, they cannot be happy. Like they
Right.
can't they cannot be happy when it's just about that. So, we all know, like, you got to take care of you before you can even take care of your kids, you know? What is it in an airplane when they tell you, like, take care of you first? Put your mask on first,
Yeah.
then put the mask on your kids. And it's
Yeah.
reversed. We've somehow reversed this, where we don't take care of ourselves. And when you do that, like I said, it's a big piece of what I'm doing now with the Tsunami Effect. Your health deteriorates very quickly. Well, you don't have that. You're certainly not going to have any relationships. And a distant third is the career. Your career is going to fall apart if you don't have the first two. So, yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. That you can be selfish. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. It's become such a bad thing, you know.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm saying it because I'm quite lost for words, because it's so refreshing to hear, somebody, even as well, Eric, as a father, to be able to clearly say that with such direct energy, that yeah, you've got to look after yourself, because it's got to preach that, because so many
Yeah.
people put others first, and then they know when they get to a point such as a breaking point or breakdown, that they're like, oh, I probably should have taken care of myself first, but then it can be sometimes too late.
That's the frightening thing. So I want to tell your audience about my dad. So my dad was, you could say he's a high performer. An editor for magazines, these big magazines in the States. Well, actually, they're international. But my dad was an alcoholic. He doubted himself. My dad got into law school, didn't go. My dad was very was just didn't have the confidence, honestly, Luke, to make himself better. And I believe very strongly that it contributed, his lack of belief in himself, it contributed to his downfall. And he had a massive heart attack when he was 46 years old. Now, you can't drink and smoke the way he did and expect to be healthy, but there it is. Alcohol is insidious, especially for alcoholics, because it destroys their health and their relationships, and then your career falls apart. And that's what happened to my father. But when I tell that story, I always say that my dad's falling and failing was his lack of belief in himself. He just he didn't believe he could be a good father, a good provider, or anything like that. And I look at it now and I go, wow, he was 46. I'm going to be 58. I'm much older now than he was, and I have more life experience than he ever did. And it's just so interesting. And I think the audience, especially that's why it is important to start early, to to learn to believe in yourself, no matter what your circumstances were when you were growing up, that you have to learn to believe in yourself. And if you do that, I do believe you're going to shift the way that you'll have a paradigm shift in the way that you look at life. and the way that you look at your health and relationships. That's the funny thing, is because we're so career driven. I can't speak for the UK. I can tell you here in the States, man, you hear these kids talking. I hear these kids talking in my speed school, and man, it's about career, 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 career. Whether it be in sports or whatever it be, that's all they think about. I'm like, you need to take time out for you and your family and your friends and everything like that. And that's where I stand on that.
And okay then, so this is quite interesting. Where you'd spoken about all they are is like career, 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 work, 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 or make lots of money, you know, all that kind
Mhm.
of stuff. From your own sort of outside perspective looking in, you know, seeing it from like a helicopter's view, if you'd
Mhm.
say, why do you think that is? Why do you think they're so obsessed with career now and not probably wanting or actually enjoying the childhood?
Well, I think our society is driven now on instant gratification. I think our society is driven on unrealistic expectations. I think that we begin. I don't know when it happened. I can't completely blame social media, because social media can be great. You and I both know that. I the culture that we're in, there's a lack of respect. There's a lack of responsibility that's left. I think it's a generation of parents now, this newer generation of parents, that they have a difficult time saying no to their children. They have a very difficult time not being parents. I'm sorry, they have a difficult time being parents. They want to be friends, and they don't want to have the responsibility of those parents. And they're having these kids now. Now there's anomalies, like within the structure. I know people in their 20s who are phenomenal parents and just tremendous at what they do. But it's a generational thing, I think, and I can't look back. Like my mom's generation probably would have looked at my generation and gone, well, they have a lot of problems, but it seems to be exacerbated. And I'll tell you, I really think the pandemic made it worse, Luke. I think that there is a general lack of empathy left, a general lack of communication left. Social media has made it worse, but it's this instant gratification. And I say unrealistic expectations, although even saying that, some people go, well, you should never tell people that their expectations are unrealistic. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, is everybody going to walk out and be a major on the MLS? Is everybody going to walk out and be in the European soccer leagues? Is everybody going to be an NFL football player? No. So you're expecting an 8-year-old, and you're going to put adult pressures on an 8-year-old to perform at that level. So I always say, you'll laugh at this. I work with this group. It's Europa United. It's a soccer club here. Do you know the kids are like 8 to 11 years old? Guess what their test is? Preseason test. It's the Man U test. Are they insane? They're going to put a professional, Olympic level soccer program and make 8-year-olds run it. That's just
Yeah.
that's insane. Like, so I just think that's we've got a society that wants everything right now. And then I've heard parents say, like, I said, well, they're playing 3 sports, stop 2 and train. No, they won't get their scholarship. I'm like, okay, yeah, your 12-year-old's not getting a scholarship. Just to be clear, like, so that's where I think it is. I think the society is, we're lacking something. I wonder if it's like we said, the confidence. We said that there's a level of panic amongst parents that if their kids aren't doing something all the time, they're going to do terrible things, which I don't agree with. Let them be kids. So I don't know. Where do you think it is? I mean, you're a young father. You have a young child. Like, where do you think it is as a podcast host and as a professional?
Yeah, I think just very similar, Eric, to what you've sort of shared when it comes to wearing multiple hats, juggling multiple sports, spreading thin, unrealistic expectations, the pressure of, you know, falling behind, fear of missing out, I guess, you know, all those feelings. I mean, gosh, I felt that when I got released. You know, I was hitting the gym 7 days a week thinking, well, if I don't train 7 days a week and do double sessions, i.e., running on a grass football pitch on my own, doing shuttles, and then going to the gym and training weight, strength, conditioning, that I'm never going to keep up with the pros. You know, and a lot of these clubs now and a lot of sports clubs especially with the photos that they take that looks like a FIFA card. I'm talking about football here, and they
Yes.
just, and the money and the money and the sponsorship that they ask for. I mean, I know this is a bit of a random tangent, but I got asked to sponsor an amateur football club to be on like a flag that blows in the wind, just to have my business on there. It was like, I mean, we're talking, I don't even know how many fans they'd get there, probably like 30, and they're just parents of the kids, right? And they're asking for like 500 English pounds for the year. And I'm thinking, where's this money going? I mean, it's just all about the money and the
Yeah.
sponsorship, and I get it, I do, but that also adds pressure to the young kids. And I just think, yeah, there's so much, and I'm not saying social media is all bad, because it does open up many doors and opportunities. Hence, I've utilized social media to get trials in other countries. But
Sure.
I just feel, I just truly believe that the word and what we're missing, I think if there's one word that I'd say, it's presence.
That's strong.
I think that's it. I think it's
That's
just,
really
we're not
strong.
we're chasing all the time. Parents are chasing. We're chasing.
That's strong.
Parents are chasing. Kids are chasing. We're just not actually in the moment. That's what I think.
Boy, that is a powerful one. Oh wow, that's a game changer. What you just said. You're right.
And I'm saying that as a father as well, because I had this, and I'll share it with you. I had this conversation with my fiance the other day, and she had a go at me, and she says, "Luke, you've just come back from your trip from Marbella, and you're on your phone, and you've got your daughter at your heels, sort of wanting your attention, and you're not, and wakes you up, and you're sort of going, yeah, I'm not there, I'm not present." And I just think, we all fall in those traps, we all do it, but I just feel that that's what's causing, I think, and we see the spotlight, we see the limelight, and it's not what it's like you're saying with the athletes, that if they was being true to themselves and shared to some of these people actually what it's like, it's not, they'll probably say, oh, I wish I did enjoy my childhood a little bit more, and I probably would have played better. I probably would have performed better if I did have a bit of space, like, workaholic. If I actually recovered from work by having a couple of days off per week, I probably would have got better results with my clients, or I would have got better results in work. I'd have probably performed better by actually having rest, but I just decided that if I didn't work, I wouldn't achieve, right? More. And, we've heard of that saying, less is more, which is, is powerful in itself. But I think it's like, but what does that less is more mean? And I think, just from my own perspective, I think it's presence.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think also being significantly smarter about the way you do things, not for what is it, the old saying, like forcing a square peg into a round hole. That we have a
Yeah,
tendency where we will put it there and we will just continuously bang the hammer into it and thinking, yeah, it's going to work. I mean, I'm going to force it to work, and it doesn't. But the thing you're saying about presence, um, I think the problem in our business, the fitness industry and the sports and the performance industry, and honestly, the whole fitness, we're not trainers, we're coaches, because coaches are going to impact far more into the future than just literally just training in the moment. I think the problem is that presence. I think we spend more time with other people's families than our own. And so that when we get back to our families, we have nothing left. There's just no energy left. You don't want to talk, you don't want to
absolutely.
interact, and that's a serious problem. And by the way, like, I've noticed that. So I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back, but I'm in high demand to coach. But I see it now. My son even said, he goes, can't you be just home for dinner and have dinner with me? And it really hit me pretty hard. And I said, Karen said the same thing. Can you just not be here at 9 p.m.? So here I am going, that's why I made that decision, Luke, where, I mean, I'm done. I mean, no, I have one foot in the door, one foot out the door. But December 1st, I turned 58. It's not going to matter. Like, I'm going to be done. And by the way, if I grow my business the way I want to now from the Tsunami Effect, if I so choose to go out and coach a clinic, with athletes, I can do that by choice, not by necessity.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. Yeah, and just sharing those experiences. I mean, a lot of people relate to this, Eric. Just what you're sharing there about, Karen saying that, your kids saying that. There'll be parents listening to this episode, and it's hard, right? It's a hard sort of mindset and where you operate from, right? To change that and like I say, be more present. And I think that in itself, you talk about when you said earlier about you speak with a couple and they sort of, like you say, what do you do for you or anything? Do you guys go out and they don't do anything? It's all kids, 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 and then you think surely they're not happy. It's that in itself, I think, is something where relationships can grow apart because they're still not having their actual intimacy. The relationship there. They had it before they probably had children, and then they sort of try and have it once children are sort of left. But what about the in between part? It's important to continue it.
Right. Agreed.
So tell us about, okay, so let's shift on to the tsunami, right? The tsunami effect. Where did that name stem from?
So, like I told you, when I had this breakdown with Karen, and how what happened was we didn't talk for 30 days, and I always laughed that not to throw another person's name out, but I know she referenced the Let Them theory by Mel Robbins. I mean, that's obvious. So my goal is once
Right,
the
yeah,
book's
yeah,
out,
yeah.
well, once the book's out, I want to go on her podcast and say like, this is your fault. That's all happened. But then thank
Please
her
let me know
for
if you
it.
get on her
Yeah,
podcast. Yeah, please let
I'm
me know
gonna.
if you get on. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it. And so when Karen told me that we were done, she told me like the day before Valentine's Day of this past year, and I just said to her, "No, I don't agree with that." And I said, "Let me read your response to the list you gave me." And I wrote a 5-page, like kind of, I'm not going to say it's a diatribe, but it was 5 pages basically of outlining and saying to her, "You're right." First time I ever told her she was right. First time I ever really listened to her. And I wrote it. And after that, she let me read it. It was very emotional, Luke. It was a very emotional talk with her. And so what happened from there was she said, okay, well, this changes everything. This is not the conversation I thought we'd have, because she thought I was going to be just the old Eric, just going to respond basically either shake it off and be like, okay, whatever, or in a worse term, tell her to go F herself. That's what I think that she thought I was going to do. And I refused to do. I'm not going to do that. And then the next day, this hit me to write a book. And I literally was reading about the tsunami from 2004 in the Indian Ocean, the Boxer tsunami. I was reading about it because fascinated by tsunamis. And I thought, interesting, that starts off as a disturbance, propagates out from its center point, and then you can't really see it. You can't see the waves coming until they get closer and closer to the shoreline. And as they get closer and closer to the shoreline, that's when they become extraordinarily destructive. And I thought that day, I was like, interesting. Isn't that kind of like our reaction to things in our lives? These smaller ripples of, I started kind of formulating what it was, and it codified as fear, anxiety, frustration, and depression. They don't seem like much when they start. But then as they start to approach our shoreline, which is our conscious and subconscious mind, they become this relentless force of destruction. And that's where I said, okay, I'm going to write a book about how do you see those ripples first before they become massive tsunami waves. And what people don't know is they're not normal waves. They are not like wind driven waves or moon driven where they crest and fall. They are just boiling masses of destructive power. And they don't stop. They keep moving. Then they go back out and another one hits. And so I looked at it and said, okay, so I can also talk to people about if you've been hit by a tsunami, how do you then fortify I call them citadels. How do you fortify those citadels to withstand what is about to hit you? Because it's going to hit you no matter what. We all have them. And I thought this is, and by the way, professionals, not athletes necessarily, but professionals in every world, sales, executives, all have the same issue. The same issues pop up. I had an executive I was talking to 2 days later. I told him the concept. He said, Eric, he said, I don't know one CEO who couldn't use this. He goes, CEOs that should have two people on their speed dial all the time. He said, their therapist and their life coach. He said, that's what CEOs should have. So that was the genesis. Then, because I was in a group called the Brotherhood of Fatherhood, a very good friend of mine who I'm going to shout out, Scott Ramage, I talked to Scott on a whim. I called him and he said, hey, I'm working to write my own book. I'm hooked in with these editors in Texas. They help you write a book. And I contacted them immediately, Luke, and within 2 days I was already getting set to start my book by February 17th.
That's your tsunami.
That's right. You got
That's
that right.
great. Yeah. No, but just how that when that moment happened where, you know, it almost felt that, I mean, even like you said, the change had to be with yourself, but how you've created this concept and this, you know, throughout your entire life experience. And obviously this is something that you found as a unique mechanism to help people, you know, like say executives, high performers, because obviously you've been in that world. What would you say is sort of, I don't really want to, obviously a lot of it is process focused and you can't always sort of guarantee outcomes, but what, you know, for somebody to sort of come through and come out the other side of this tsunami, because obviously there's this damage involved in the tsunami itself, what would you want them to achieve from the tsunami effect?
Well, first they have to be open and honest with themselves, because normally that's the beginning step. The beginning process is being open and honest with yourself. It is a willingness to be open and vulnerable to what you're experiencing. It's a willingness to be open and vulnerable to your life experiences and how they've affected you and why you're so angry and why you're so anxious and why you're so depressed. To open up. Now, I want to caveat this. If somebody's truly clinically depressed, they need to get help. And I put that in the book that they need to contact a psychologist or psychiatrist or a counselor, because I'm certainly not a counselor. But my role is to get people to be open and honest about where they are. And there's a whole workbook piece of this, Luke, behind it, where at the end of every chapter, there's a story and then there's a workbook piece behind it, where are they working on the top 3 things that they want to achieve in their lives, the top three negative things that affected them when they were a youth, things like that. They have to be willing to make and to do the work for what they're trying to accomplish. I always say is create stability out of chaos. They have to be willing to do that and really look deeply at where they are, not just superficially and say like, oh, because I journal, but it's not superficial. It's not just to check a box. It's literally to introspect my day. Are they willing to do that even? Now, journaling can be in a lot of different ways, but are they willing to open themselves up? The result is this. If you become very honest with yourself, I do believe you change the trajectory of your life. Certainly your health. Got to take that into account. We're fitness guys, so we're still going to be talking about health and that what they need to be doing to be healthy. And then be open and honest with your relationships. And if you're open and honest with your relationships, your career is going to thrive as a result of that. But you said it's each person's going to have a different, separate kind of journey and outcome behind this. But I would say generally what they're looking to do is to make some, and I will tell you, dramatic improvements in their current state.
Yeah, I think just there, that's great, Eric. I think just for the open-mindedness of it, of where they are, it's that vulnerability, it's that courage to open up. I think once that starts, I think if you get that person in that moment right there, and again, I think you're very open and honest guy anyway. It's very clear to see you just say it how it is. You'll tell the people straight that, you know, if they're in a really deep dark place, obviously, you know, therapy is sort of the way forward. What would you say is your, I just love to know this from your coaching now perspective and skill set that you've got. What would you say is your unique ability as a coach to extract that potential from an individual?
Well, I will tell you, it's the I've always believed in community. I've always believed in culture. And so for me, it's more about how do I get an emotional connection with the person I'm working with? So not just the coaching piece of it, but how do you tap into somebody's emotion? I'm a really good storyteller in terms of culture. Really good storyteller in terms of culture. That's been the number one piece behind this. So I make a connection, I think a deep connection. And you could go, even in my Parisi days and when I did training for warriors, I was known as that coach that's going to reach people at a deeper level than just the aspect of drills and training. So for my coaching for now, and I think it's the same thing with adults. When you're talking to an adult, they want to be they want to be a part of a story, and then being able to reach into their life story. I think that's an important piece of this.
So obviously, Eric, you've been through a lot through your development as a coach, and now that you've gone into this Tsunami Effect coaching, you're working with these high performers, CEOs, individuals. What would you say is your unique ability as a coach?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been known in the coaching world, whether it be Parisi or training for warriors, which I was involved with, which is for adult training, is that always about culture and community. And so reaching into to people's psyches about like, what does it really mean to be a part of something greater than yourself? I've always had that ability to do that. And I think people crave that. They want to be a part of a story in a sense. And I've always, and very passionately been able to do that, whether it be at a fundraiser, whether it be at a speech, whether it be just working with kids or adults. I've always had that ability. And to draw out of people, I do believe to make them feel more comfortable with being vulnerable. And I've always had that knack, and that's been a long time in my, not just in my coaching career, but when I was a youth counselor, things like that, way back in the day. So that would be I would say was my unique coaching niche that I'm able to do. And it's because it's from the heart. That's where it's from. It really, I really care about the people I work with.
I think that's amazing. The fact that you've shared that and it flowed so naturally. And, obviously already sharing with our audience about your childhood and sort of what happened and how it seemed as though you isolated yourself and you've kind of like you didn't want to share so much, carried a lot of weight, and now you're sort of coming out. You've got this empathy, you've got this touch about you that's quite personal, where people feel safe, and you're vulnerable and you're open about your emotions. You own up to things that, maybe like you say, when you had that scenario with Karen, you sort of owned up to it. She thought you was going to tell her to F off and do one. Well, that was probably once the old Eric, and you sort of leaned into this new version of Eric. So
Mhm.
I think that's brilliant. I mean, absolute kudos to you on being able to not only acknowledge that, but actually to develop this character that you've got today. So what is next for Eric now?
Yeah, well, like I said, I think that my job, if you look at it, is to be always a better father, to be a better partner, to be a better friend to the people I'm around, and then to take care of me, to make sure I'm taking care of my health at my advanced uh, total knee replacement body. So that's that's where I am right now. And what happens in that regard when again, if I'm working on myself and my relationships, my career is going to thrive. So what's next in the career is honestly, Luke, I'm going to develop the Tsunami Effect. The book's going to come out. My real goal is to get up on stage and speak to more of an audience. Now, I've spoken all over the country, but not at the level I want to. I want to get more of a reach about tsunami. For the longest time, people will say, "Oh, Eric, you're the performance coach." Oh, Eric's performance coach. I'm kind of reintroducing myself as more of a not necessarily a life coach or anything like that. I think it's a cultural coach. I think it's learning how to harness culture. I want to get out more to more people. I want to have a platform. Do I want to do a podcast? Yes, and you'll be a guest on that podcast for sure, Luke. And I can ask you a bunch of questions, but um, I just think it's this natural flow. If you ask me what I really ultimately want, I want security, of course, financial security for my family. That's different than I have right now, but that's a byproduct. Those things will happen when you commit yourself to making the to making the right moves to the right people that see the value in what you're going to give them and present to them. And then they see value in themselves. What a great feeling that you could be somewhere and you could be on a beach and someone comes up and says, "Oh, I bought your book. You changed my life." Wow. Like, that's what it's about. That's not about the amount of money you made. It's a byproduct. Obviously, you want to have security. This is the way the world is. But I want to have people feel good about themselves as a result of the work that I've done. And I honestly want my son that when I'm gone, he can say, you know what? My dad was just a good dad and he was a good person. That says a lot when you can have your children say that you were that person and that you were that mentor and role model for them.
That's beautifully said, Eric. Thank you for sharing that. And I think, yeah, you don't want to just be known, like you say, you've evolved now. You're in a different stage of your life. You're not known as just the performance coach. Obviously, yeah, people remember you as that, but you want to be this global inspirational tool that is transforming lives. I mean, gosh, you'll have to let me know when that first person goes up to you in a random setting, or and they hey Eric, I read your book, it changed my life. Which
Yeah.
I think is brilliant. So just on that note, quickly, I mean, we're going to sort of get into the final question.
Sure.
When does the book get released? I mean,
Yeah, it's
what,
October 14th. It gets released on Amazon. I have a if anybody's interested, I would love an email address from people. They can send that to me. I can put them on a list. I'm gonna have a landing page that's gonna come out. That's from my editors. They're brilliant. This Smart Publishing, they're amazing, and that's when it comes out. It comes out on Kindle the first day. That's how Amazon kind of works their algorithms. And then after the 24 hours, then you can go to hardback or paperback. Yeah, it's been a passion of mine. I'm already thinking of the second book. I'm already working on the second book, which is going to be about fathers and sons, and
no
how
way.
a father-son's relationship and how vitally important a father is. But my perspective as a son, because I have a son, I know that there's research out there for girl dads, how important a strong father is for a female. But I can only speak. But that's the next book, and it'll be dedicated to my son Cole.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that's really, really nice. So that's great that you share that, because like I say, this episode will be out anyway, like for people to listen to
Mhm.
before your book's released. So at least they've got, like I say, they can send an email and look forward to that. But look, I've got a question for you. I do ask it every guest. I mean, I don't need to say what it is because you've heard it before. Because we did a take one and we didn't get that out to the world, did we? So Eric, what does mastering your life mean to you?
Wow, I would say mastering my life would mean that I could sit back and breathe and realize that the legacy that I'm bringing forth for my future and the generations of Mitchells after me from my son is that they can look back and they can say that I transformed my life from a position of vulnerability, that I transformed my life when I was at my lowest point, and that I learned to master my emotions in a way where I could actually leverage them for the betterment of myself and the people around me. That's mastery. And by the way, Luke, you never stop. So mastery never ends.
Exactly.
You're going to be mastering your life until the day you pass away. That's just what it is. And your legacy will be masked over and over again, changing, and that's what I think it is. That's mastering your life.
Oh, boom. I like it. I do. And to be honest, I have to say the sort of answers of people that I ask that question, and they sort of say, but you're never really going to truly master it.
Mm-mm.
It's just that it's a forever evolving thing. I really do love that answer, and I sort of connect with that a lot. So thank you for that, honestly, answer. Look, I want you to plug yourself in, Eric. Where can people find out more about you? Where's the best place?
Yeah, I think social media is the best avenue. It's going to be at Coach Eric Mitchell on Instagram, and it's just Eric Mitchell on Facebook. What I'm finding more and more now is that people are dialed into Facebook and Instagram, and that's where it is. I'm formulating a website for Tsunami, but we're kind of waiting on that once the book releases and everything. But I do think the social media piece is the most important because that's the quickest way to get a hold of somebody. And if people message me, they're going to get a message back. I don't care where I am, how I am. I could be on the beach in Hawaii, and I'll get back to them sitting there, at some point after I've, having family time. But
Yeah, sure.
but yeah, that's the easiest way to get a hold of me is through those social media handles.
Fantastic. Well, look, we'll ensure those handles are in there so it's easily clickable to
Awesome.
find you, Eric, and connect with you. But look, it's been a pleasure to have another episode with you. It's been fantastic, and I just want to say from my side, hosting this, I've loved it, and thanks again, Eric, for your time.
Thank you to you and your audience and everything. Really, really an honor. Thank you.